Well, folks, the Houthi blockade of the Red Sea is really having an impact on global trade. As of today, I believe it's 3, but at least 2, because I saw for a fact, I believe Maersk and Hapag-Lloyd. I think there was one other, an oil tanker company, have all ceased operations in the Red Sea. They said, no, we're not going to go through the Suez and into the Red Sea anymore. We're not going to try and traverse through there. They're going to have to go, I guess, around Africa. They're going to have to round the Cape of Good Hope, just like the good old days. Because after all these years, Yemen is finally exercising some agency in the world. They've put their foot down and they've said, so far and no further. We were blockaded for years. We were unable to bring in food into our ports after our domestic food production was subverted, after it was dismantled by Western meddling, by Western finance, and under ostensibly altruistic premises. I'm being careful because I don't want to be too hyperbolic, and I also don't want to undersell the situation. I want to be very precise in what I'm saying. Yemen, since the end of the Cold War, was encouraged to move away from domestic food production. They were encouraged, rather, to move towards producing cash crops, like coffee. And so as a result, they would export their cash crops, the farmers would. They would earn money, and then with that money, they would be able to import food. So you export coffee, for example, import wheat. And that works fine until your country gets blockaded by the United States for no reason. You did nothing to America. Your government did nothing to America. Saudi Arabia's crown prince just decided that he wanted to have some sort of war under his belt so that he could look tough at home. And so what did he do? He wanted to go kick in the teeth of the next door neighbor. He wanted to go beat up the kid down the block so that the rest of the neighborhood, and specifically his brothers, and in this case probably literally his brothers, his cousins, so that they would all respect him. He wanted to go pick a fight. And he picked a fight. But he couldn't do it on his own. He needed his good buddy, Mr. Obama, and later on Mr. Trump, to lend him a hand. And so the United States blockaded Yemen so that they could no longer import food. And what food they did grow in Yemen, the U.S. helped destroy. They bombed flocks of sheep in the fields. They bombed grain silos. They destroyed water treatment plants, which led to a massive cholera outbreak, which of course is going to target the children and the elderly. Those are the people who are weakest and most susceptible to cholera. And of course, why was there cholera after they destroyed the water treatment plants? It's like, well, because the water was being contaminated with sewage, because they no longer had running water. I mean, it was the most sick, depraved kind of warfare imaginable. There was nothing that was off the table. That's what my government did to poor little Yemen, one of the already poorest countries on the planet. Certainly just about the poorest in the Middle East. And so now, all these years later, they're finally able to stand on their own. And you know what? They're going to cause a little bit of problem for us. They would like to have some revenge. And at the same time, and as far as they're concerned, I'm sure if they can help the Palestinians while they're at it, well, that's all the better. But I think mainly they're happy to get their revenge. I might be wrong. This might be purely, from their perspective, a matter of trying to stand up for the Palestinians because they see what's happening to them and that nobody stood up for them, meaning the people of Yemen, when they were under assault from America and its closest ally. In Yemen's case, that was Saudi Arabia. In the Palestinians' case, it is Israel. It is very much the same exact situation in Gaza as we had in Yemen, except Yemen's much bigger country, but still small compared to the world overall. Far smaller than Saudi Arabia, far smaller than Iraq. Now, unlike the United States, Yemen does not have some great globe-trotting military. They don't have a so-called blue water navy or a navy of any kind where they can project power anywhere in the world at a moment's notice. But what they do have is leverage in the form of their position, geographic position within the world, being right at the mouth of where the Red Sea dumps into the Indian Ocean. And so they can do their best to try and close that pass. And so that's why they announced this blockade. They said, because this is something we can do. It's not that this particular corridor is the most crucial thing to the war in Gaza, but it's the only thing we can do as a small country, as a country that has been under assault. And at this stage, they have nothing left to lose. I love all these ignorant Americans I see on Twitter, these war pigs, who probably have no idea that the U.S. had been at war with Yemen for like a decade, saying, "Oh my gosh, look at how these Houthi rebels," they're still calling them Houthi rebels, by the way. Isn't that adorable? How could these Houthi rebels be allowed to do this? Joe Biden's weak. He needs to bomb them into the Stone Age. We already tried that. It didn't work. We did it for years and years and years and years. And guess what? They're still alive. There's still some people left in Yemen. We killed hundreds of thousands of them. But there are some who survived. They breathe. Look at them. And then you have these fools who want to come on and say, "Oh, I don't care. We don't negotiate with terrorists. They're beneath us. These people, they're insects." You know what? That kind of attitude is exactly why this is happening. And that's why it's going to keep happening. Because the bugs know that they're going to be squashed whether they bite you or not. Whether they are fire ants or sugar ants. You will exterminate them all the same. And so why not, on their way out, if they know this is how you treat them, this is how you regard them, why not try and leave you with a little bite mark on their way to hell? And so these three shipping companies, Hapag-Lloyd, Maersk, I believe, and what was the third one? I can't remember at this point. All names you'd know. They've made the responsible decision to suspend their shipments through the Red Sea for at least the next 3 days. That will probably be extended because the Houthi blockade is not going to end. And we know that the United States, Israel, Saudi Arabia, these countries are not going to try and approach the Houthis to get them to lift the blockade, even though I'm sure they would be very much open to negotiation. This is leverage that they're exercising. They would want to get something out of it, like, let's say, a humanitarian corridor from the sea, maybe, into Gaza, or something else. I don't know. Maybe they would demand, hey, allow so many pounds of rice to cross the border into Gaza every day so the people can eat. That sort of a thing. Fuel, so people who are living in tents can keep warm in the winter. I don't know how cold it is there right now. I'm sure it probably gets pretty cold in the winter. I know it snows sometimes there, I think. Either way, we'll never know, because if the West does anything about this, it will be more war. We're just going to go right back to war with Yemen. How long did Biden's, sort of soft pause of the Yemen war, how long did that last? Has it been 6 months even? I know it was one of the few things that I sort of gave tepid praise to Biden for, because I'm like, well, I don't know how long this will last or how much it'll actually be a pause, because remember, Trump said, hey, we're going to get out of Syria, and that never happened. But luckily, the shipping companies themselves are smart. They've recognized the situation. Okay, there's a blockade. We are a shipping company. We can't do anything about that. And so we're not going to try and run a blockade for the sake of, delivering our goods on time. That's what do you call that? Force majeure. So we don't have to risk our lives trying to run a blockade. And boy, I look at this, and there are people who are outraged about it. When I look at this, you know what I think? I think I'm glad that the blowback from the decade of America's war in Yemen, the slaughter of hundreds of thousands of people, I'm glad that the blowback from that is just a blockade of shipping moving through the Red Sea. Rather than, I don't know, another 9/11. Rather than blowing up buildings and killing thousands of Americans, the folks in Yemen said, hey, why don't we just, disrupt their cargo liners and maybe close a trade route that we have some influence over. Frankly, I prefer this because there's going to be some blowback. It's got to come at some point. People don't just forget that within the last couple of years, the United States was raining down hellfire. They're not going to forget all of their family members and friends who were murdered by America. So with that said, I will see you folks back here at some point.